bit more incentive to stay.
They're about to clear the grid, so let's quickly have a word with Patrick Head, who's with Bruce.
Patrick, your cars are starting 4th and 5th on the grid this afternoon. What are your thoughts about the action ahead?
Well, it's a very interesting track and quite high speed, so the fine balance of the car is very important, and I'm looking forward to the race, but obviously we'd like to be starting higher up on the grid.
We've got to get off the grid now. Thanks for talking to us, Patrick.
Experienced touring car racer, always at the wheel of that SL55 Mercedes, and let's just hope that the safety car isn't called into action in the race itself. We've seen the race started behind a safety car here in the past when the weather conditions have been poor. I'm glad to say, looking over the Ardennes forests, that the track is dry. There might be some cloud, but there's no rain falling, and we've got some pretty ideal conditions for the start of today's Grand Prix.
Yes, temperature not particularly high, but the cloud does appear to be high, and that is obviously a very good sign. We've had that 20% forecast of rain at some point during the Grand Prix, but right now this race is going to start in dry conditions. Track conditions pretty good as well, although the track temperature is only 18 degrees. Nevertheless, with a fairly, well, a moderately high load of fuel on board, the energy that will generate will get tyre temperature fairly quickly. It'll be more a case, I think, of tyre degradation, and I think we're going to see that will be a greater factor for the Michelin runners, maybe more so of the softer Michelin than the more durable one that will be with Ralf Schumacher, Montoya and David Coulthard in particular.
So as the clock continues to count down at the top of your screen, Raikkonen now just a few moments away from this run down to La Source. We saw in the Formula 3000 race yesterday a little bit of contact between some of the cars. Let's just check the grid once again as we prepare for the start of the Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen sharing the front row of the grid today. The two of them battled for the French Grand Prix, and it was Michael Schumacher who came out on top on that occasion. Barrichello next up, starts third on the grid. Ralf Schumacher fourth, the first of the two Williams. Then it's Juan Pablo Montoya and David Coulthard starting in 6th position, but working on race setup and looking for a decent result at the end of the 44 laps. On through the list, Trulli, Irvine, Salo and Button in the top 10, and then Jacques Villeneuve. Alan McNish starting 13th ahead of Fisichella. Then it's Panis and Sato, Massa and Heidfeld, and at the back the two Minardis, Mark Webber and Anthony Davidson.
And just one last minute bit of news from the pit lane, and that's Rubens Barrichello will in fact start in the spare car rather than his race car, so rather a late minute change for Ferrari, and maybe because Rubens has not been entirely comfortable with the balance of his car throughout the weekend, he may decide that he thinks that the spare car is going to give him a better run here this afternoon.
Well, there is Rubens, so therefore we know he is in the spare car, but he looks relatively relaxed.
Yeah, he looks also, I think he looks more comfortable. I don't know why, maybe just his eyes and the way he just turned around and communicated with somebody to his left. It just seemed to indicate that he was quite comfortable and quite happy.
Best result here in Spa, 5th place, and that was last year. It did hit the tyres at the bus stop chicane last year. Now we don't seem to have tyres on the bus stop chicane this year. We have a few plastic poles. We had tyres out for the Porsche Super Cup race, but they will not be there in the Grand Prix.
No, and as the minute ticks away, then these cars will make their way around for the final time before they'll come onto the grid for the start of this year's Belgian Grand Prix. 44 laps of the 4.3-mile circuit. And there, the front of the Ferrari there, and looked like they're scrubbed front, certainly in the front of Kimi Raikkonen's McLaren. As we just say, yes, you can see those tyres have been run. They're still pretty fresh, but nonetheless they've just done the initial run, 2 laps running. As for Michael Schumacher, we did see him go out of the pits on what I thought was a brand new set of sticker tyres. Those tyres now, obviously the skin has been taken off, and watch for the rubber being laid as they just ensure that they get the best opportunity, even with the launch control, to make a good start.
So, the formation lap, yes, let's see how many people use the launch control and how many people switch it off and lay some rubber down here as they get ready to start the formation lap. Well, several people you can see laying a bit of rubber down, Raikkonen in particular there. This is on board with Raikkonen. Now, start of the race, Raikkonen has impressed me a number of times this year. He's very aggressive on cold tyres and usually keeps it all together, been seen some good first corners from Kimi Räikkönen. Today, his main problem may not be actually challenging Michael Schumacher. It may be getting over in front of Barrichello in time to stay in second place.
Yes, I think that's the big problem for everybody on the left-hand side of track, that those on the right-hand side could just have to stay there and maintain position and just back up one after the other, and you'll preclude the entire left-hand side of the grid from being able to blend in. There will be contact, I'm certain, from one or two people. Usually it'll happen in the middle towards the back of the grid. Nevertheless, with Räikkönen, Ralf Schumacher and Coulthard, the principal front left-hand side of the grid starters, all trying to squeeze in on top of Barrichello, Montoya, and truly, well, it could be a bit of a squeeze into turn one. Let's hope they all do get round. Let's hope there are no bits of carbon fibre flying off. Let's hope we don't have a start like we saw in the Formula 3000 race, where there was a bit of a shunting match in La Source in the exit of the corner, and everybody can file down cleanly and clearly into Eau Rouge and get this race underway.
20 of the world's best racing drivers about to do battle on one of the best racetracks in the world, the 4.3 mile Spa circuit, and they are now just coming around. Still a little way to go, of course, on this longest track currently used in Grand Prix racing before they make their way back onto the grid. There's a little sign of tension from inside the McLaren Mercedes pit.
I tell you, a lot of tension on the face of Norbert Haug, who's Dave Levin's motorsport director, and he's sitting there quite tense indeed. Martin Whitmarsh behind him, much more relaxed.
Yeah, even Ron Dennis is looking a little anxious, a little wound up before the start of this one, perhaps seeing just what Kimi can achieve and watching for Coulthard's progress in the early laps, and Coulthard watching throughout the race. He knows it's a long race, this one, 2 stops. He'll be making the most of the strategy here today.
Looking at Jean Todt, totally relaxed, and knows that he's in a very, very strong, very comfortable position.
Adrian Newey for McLaren doesn't look too wound up, but everybody at this stage, unpredictable opening lap. It's always unpredictable at this point. And there we are on board with David Coulthard, heading down towards the bus stop as his teammate makes his way through there. Ralph just squirting the car a little bit. Coulthard makes his way through the bus stop, followed by Jarno Trulli and Eddie Irvine. Great to see the Jaguar that far up the grid this time. His best qualifying performance of the season. Can Eddie now convert that into a point-scoring finish in the Belgian Grand Prix? Michael Schumacher moves on to pole position, his first ever pole position in Spa, but can he now convert that into a 6th Belgian Grand Prix victory and his 10th win of the season, and shatter yet more records in this astonishing year of 2002 for Ferrari and for Schumacher? Anthony Davidson, the last man to move up into position, of course, starting his 2nd Grand Prix for Minardi. Let's wish him well. Let's hope he makes it all the way to the finish of this 44-lap encounter. And we're all set, we're all ready for the lights to come on, and when they go out, we'll be racing in Belgium. Away we go. Michael Schumacher tries to get away, and Räikkönen shuts the door immediately on Barrichello. Barrichello comes down the inside, so Räikkönen is forced to go out wide. Montoya's on the inside. Ralf Schumacher's in there. Räikkönen gets into 3rd, Montoya into 4th, and Coulthard is working, trying to get past Ralf Schumacher.
Well, that was a tight start, but Ralf Schumacher just outdrags Coulthard down into Eau Rouge. Kimi Räikkönen lost 1 place to Barrichello, but I think he did still a pretty reasonable job. He was on the wrong side of the track. Barrichello had a great start. Now watch Coulthard comes up and gets alongside Ralf Schumacher up to Lecombe. Look at Räikkönen trying to find a way past Barrichello.
Look at Coulthard. He made it look so easy getting past Ralf Schumacher, the McLaren. Very, very fast up the hill there to Lecombe. I wonder if that means they're running a little lighter or whether simply sheer engine power. He got a great toe there.
Great toe, 326 Ks against Ralf Schumacher's 319. He got a good run up and out of Eau Rouge over the radio, and a fantastic toe down the straight.
Ralph seems to be struggling a bit here because Jarno Trulli in the Renault is right behind him. Then it's Irvine, and then it's Jenson Button running in 9th place. Mika Salo is in 10th in the Toyota. Look at Michael Schumacher getting away from Rubens Barrichello. Barrichello chased by Räikkönen and Montoya.
Now Räikkönen's got through the start. He's got over that moment when he thought, do I want to be in the front row of the grid? Yes, I do. But he did the right thing. He came across, but he just didn't have enough bite on the initial start to put himself ahead of Barrichello. Now running in 3rd place, slides wide as he comes out of the first part of Stavlo. Everybody using more curb than we've seen pretty much all over the 2 days. But Michael Schumacher up and gone. Barrichello trying to follow in a slipstream, and Raikkonen trying to keep in contact as we come up to the bus stop for the first time.
McNish made a good start. He's 12th, so he gained 1 on his start position. Fisichella is 13th, and it's Villeneuve who lost out. Villeneuve, the main loser. Look, a little bit of a battle there.
Yeah, but the main loser of all is Olivier Panis. He's 18th. Panis dropped all the way down, and he started 15th, 18th. But 2 Sabres making up a little bit of the ground.
Raikkonen comes through then, chased by Montoya and Coulthard. Bit of a queue developing here. Sarlo through the shot. There is Villeneuve, who lost out, as you say, Panis as well. So both BAR Hondas not getting a good getaway. Whether that's something to do with their launch control, I've no idea. Didn't really see them off the grid, but neither of them have gone well. Look at that picture as they head down through Eau Rouge. Almost 200 miles an hour.
And Villeneuve is giving Giancarlo Fisichella a real workout as they came into Eau Rouge. As they come out, well, we have to look all the way back to the straight. Toyota's pulling out, can't get the job done. Irvine's still running in that 8th place.
Yes, so a solid 8th place. The Saubers there.
Lock up coming into Lake Coombe. Somebody may have gone off track, but you wait to see.
2 Minardi's running close together. Let's take another look at the start here and watch at the front, but also watch further back. We can see with the BAR's lost out.
But watch the Renault. That's the Renault launch control. Truly moves from right to left. He gets position. That's why he's up to 7th. But Kimi Raikkonen really couldn't do much about Barrichello. He's got to watch Montoya up the inside. Montoya trying to find a way to squeeze into 3rd place, but it was David Coulthard there on the right of Ralph Schumacher. Schumacher dragged him into Eau Rouge, but the situations were switched when they came to Lake Coombe.
And Montoya's got past Raikkonen. Montoya has moved up into 3rd position. It did look as though Raikkonen was beginning to hold up this queue, and Montoya has found a way past. He's up into 3rd.
And David Coulthard now also coming close to the back of Kimi Raikkonen. Coulthard on the hardware of the Michelin tyres, or maybe that's the factor. Maybe Kimi Raikkonen's tyres are not working in these conditions quite as well as the harder of the 2 Michelin.
So Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, they have quite an advantage already, but let's try now and watch the lap times as they come through. Montoya got past Raikkonen, so we won't expect a particularly quick lap from Montoya on this particular one, but let's watch him as he goes on to the next lap. See whether he can close the gap. 2.4 seconds between 2.7 between Montoya and Barrichello at the end of the lap, and that's the gap to concentrate over the next few laps. So down the hill into Eau Rouge, and now we've got to see whether Raikkonen's going to come under increasing pressure.
Yes, the difference between the 2 tyre choices is that softer tyre does sometimes take 3 or 4 laps to come in to get stabilised, whereas the slightly harder tyre is there with you. Again, just a confidence factor, but Coulthard very keen to put pressure on Kimi Raikkonen. Kimi Raikkonen realising that starting at the front is a lot more difficult than starting in row 3 or row... There it is. Now, I don't know why he seemed... That was the corner on the circuit where he was outstanding all weekend, particularly on the exit, easy on the exit, but somehow he lost speed. Whether he backed out, but Montoya was able to take position, got him into Fagna, and that was it. New lap record, Michael Schumacher, 1:49.446, not surprisingly on this slightly revised, but more likely repaved Grand Prix circuit.
Yes, and Montoya chases after Barrichello effectively now. We'll monitor that gap as they come round. Doesn't seem to be closing at this stage, I have to say. Impressed by the performance of Jarno Trulli, who's staying so far with the McLarens and Williams. This is a replay of the start from the perspective of David Coulthard.
There's that launch control from Renault, but Coulthard gets up. Trulli puts himself to go round the outside, but he loses out. He gets squeezed out against the barrier. Coulthard now has a race, horsepower race, Mercedes-Benz versus BMW. Coulthard's got the initial run, but there's the difference in ultimate horsepower, and of course he has to concede. But watch as he comes out of this corner, because he gets a mighty 2 from the back of Ralph Schumacher, gets in the slipstream and pulls up alongside. A real good illustration of how a driver can use the 2 of another car to his advantage.
So that was Coulthard's move, and that puts him past Ralph Schumacher. Now they've come round to complete 3 laps. Michael Schumacher, a 49.066. 4 tenths faster than Barrichello, and I have to say there's a second between the pace that Barrichello's doing and the pace that Montoya achieved on that last lap. So rather than catching Barrichello, Montoya is dropping further away. He's now 3.6 seconds behind the number 2 Ferrari. On board with Kimi Raikkonen here, looking back at David Coulthard.
Yes, but the gap between Coulthard and the gap between Montoya, Coulthard slightly closer than Raikkonen is to Montoya. Ralph Schumacher just hanging in there, got out dragged up the hill by David Coulthard. Coulthard very, very feisty today indeed. Not happy that his teammate blew him away in qualifying. Tyre difference, that's the... Now there's what happened to Kimi Raikkonen. No wonder how he kept that thing in control. He's virtually on the lock stops. That was on the second lap down the hill. Well, Kimi Raikkonen, that's got to be the save of the day, if not, for me, the save of the season.
That was astonishing. That's one of the fastest corners here at Spa. It's taken in 5th gear. It's well over 120 miles an hour, and he had it completely crossed up through there. Fantastic reactions from Raikkonen. A little mistake, though, and it did allow Montoya to move into 3rd. So, heading around, Michael Schumacher has opened up a very healthy advantage. 2.8 seconds the gap between himself and Barrichello, and the two Ferraris gradually pulling away from the rest of the field. But I have to say we're in for a real treat in the battle as to best of the rest, because for the moment it's Montoya, as you see, but Raikkonen's still there, Coulthard's not far behind, and then Ralf Schumacher's a part of the equation, as is Jarno Trulli. So what a battle we'll have behind.
Well, the gap now 2.7, so Rubens took 1/10 of a second out of Michael's lead. Barrichello had the fastest lap between the two Ferraris, but here's a battle going on the Saubers, and we've got Heidfeld, Massa running behind Villeneuve, and behind Massa you got Takuma Sato, and that rebuilt Jordan.
So let's just see what these guys can do. The two Saubers who didn't qualify so well, running 15th and 16th. Massa chasing his teammate. Massa knows he's out of Sauber as a race driver next year. Maybe he will still be a test driver for the team, but he wants to earn a race seat somewhere. And I'm not sure that team orders will be respected to quite the same extent as they were in Germany.
A bit messy through. Nick Heidfeld's about to be caught and passed. Heidfeld goes to the right to block, now tries to sort of squeeze, and trouble down at Eau Rouge. Is that David Davidson or Webber? It's one of the two Minardis. Massa can't get it done.
I think, yeah, well, I just looked, I think Massa...
Maybe he did get through,
Maybe he did get through there. I think he did get past Heidfeld, actually. And Peter Sauber, yes, he did. He's got a little smile on his face.
He had it all teed up. He had to go the long way around. Heidfeld wasn't keen. Here we see it again in replay. So Heidfeld in the middle of the road, then he blocks to the right. Massa comes up alongside. This is eyeball to eyeball stuff up to the braking zone, but Massa's just got the advantage. He gets a car length ahead, and nothing that Nick Heidfeld can do about it.
That was pretty impressive stuff. It is Mark Webber who has pulled off at the side of the road, and it looks like it's a mechanical issue once again. Just about every session so far this weekend he's had some sort of mechanical reliability problem. It's a shame because their reliability record had been quite good.
Well, huge. This Mark's had a really rotten weekend. Interestingly, David Coulthard, currently in 5th place, now the fastest man through that first sector, chasing down his own teammate. But Michael Schumacher, yet again a new lap record, 1:48.995. Here's the battle with Villeneuve and Fisichella, the two Honda-powered teams. They come up into the bus stop. Jack, there's no way to go down the inside of Fisichella there. The braking zone is just too short. You've got to try and get it done, maybe up, as we saw Massa do with his teammate, into Lecum.
So up towards La Source, and this, of course, a tight corner, but it's very difficult to actually get alongside somebody here. But watch out for Massa.
Exactly, it's Felipe Massa's the one that's on the charge. He got past his teammate, he's pulled out, well, the best part of 1.4 seconds since he got past him. Nick Heidfeld being demoted now to 16th. Villeneuve chasing Fisichella. Massa zoning and lasering in on the back of Villeneuve.
Yeah, and behind that was Sato, who got so out of shape at the top of Radillon. Pretty impressive save from Sato. The car moving around a great deal, and of course in race conditions it's not so easy flat through Eau Rouge, and they're having to work a little bit harder at it. On board again with Jacques Villeneuve as he chases Giancarlo Fisichella, and he's got Felipe Massa right behind him, remember.
So watch for this move. Villeneuve again looking very aggressive. We saw in Austria the most aggressive I've seen Villeneuve for a long time. In certain events, certain circuits, he seems to sort of come out of the spell that he cast on himself and looks like a racing driver today. He is a racing driver.
Well, he always goes well here at Spa. The last few years he's not finished in the points, but he's had some good top 10 finishes. We're looking back though at Felipe Massa, determined to prove something in the remaining 4 Grand Prix of this year. Uses a bit of curb there. Now he's into the slipstream of Villeneuve. You can see the car sliding around more.
Yeah, and look at Felipe Massa. You can see he turns in, has to turn away from the corner, then bites again for the second time. As we watch Takuma Sato come out of the corner, trapped him this morning. He's chasing now Nick Heidfeld, and he's got Olivier Panis keeping him honest behind.
New lap record once again for Michael Schumacher at a 1:48.965, and that further extends his lead over Barrichello, although staying fairly consistent at 3.7 seconds. We're riding once again with 14th position man Jacques Villeneuve, and he's attacking Fisichella. No, not quite.
No, Fisichella all aware for that, but look, he runs slightly wide on the exit. Now a chance for Villeneuve on the run down to Eau Rouge. Giancarlo Fisichella slightly wide, missed the apex, was off the throttle, gave an opportunity, responding to the pressure from Jacques Villeneuve. The bottom of the car grinds its way up the rise out of Eau Rouge over the top at Radio.
Now he's got a decent toe. Can he convert this? He's got to move to the inside. Fisichella may well cover the inside. He does. And Villeneuve tries to
naughty, more than one move. You could say that was certainly 1.5 moves from Fisichella. Villeneuve, you can see the oversteer about to build up. He'll not be happy with that. Fisichella did move clearly to the right. Villeneuve went to the left, and Fisichella came back to the centre of the track.
Two Honda-powered cars, of course, so there's not much to choose between it in terms of ultimate horsepower. And the Jordan and BAR pits are watching this one very closely indeed. Let's take a look from outside.
Here's the first move from Fisichella. He goes to the right. Well, it's very... Yes, there it is. Now he cuts back. Now Fisichella comes back again. That, to me, is 2 moves. That could see Fisichella, let's say, having to come in and answer why he was doing that.
Felipe Massa still looking for any opportunity to nip through himself as Michael Schumacher continues to build up a very comfortable lead here over teammate Barrichello, although the two of them have sort of held station over the last lap or so. They're building their lead over Montoya in third, though. He's now 7.3 seconds behind Barrichello.
Yeah, but what's scary is he's 11 seconds behind the race leader in the space of 7 laps. He's picked up 11 seconds, and that was just, I mean, we didn't expect to see this, we didn't hope to see this. The fact is, it just proves how good. And here's this battle again.
Oh, this is a
Fisichella gets it wrong.
He's gone straight across the grass at the bus stop, and I wonder if he'll get into any trouble for that. Villeneuve's not able to take advantage of it yet.
I wonder, has Fisichella got a braking problem? We saw him make a mistake here the previous lap. He's made another one now. He's gone, there it is, all over. He made that mistake. I think he's got a brake problem because this bus stop the last time around Eau Rouge, and now in Eau Rouge gets it wrong. Villeneuve gets through, and that is unfortunate. Giancarlo Fisichella defended, but he could do no more. He's got a problem. Now Felipe Massa, he's going to pick up the slipstream. Watch for the young Brazilian make away past the Italian. This time Fisichella does not battle for that position. He knows he's got a problem. He knows he can't stop what is inevitable.
So Massa moves up one as well, so we now have Villeneuve 13th. Massa comes up to 14th, and Fisichella moved back down to 15th place. Remember, the common denominator between these 3 cars, they're all on the Bridgestone tyre. Well, the Bridgestones are working brilliantly on the Ferrari, but the Premier League Ferrari cars working on the Bridgestone, but after that, these cars fairly evenly matched, but further down, just inside the top 15, but not much better than that. McNish still running in 12th place, remember, on the Toyota with the Michelin tyres.
There's a big battle going on for 8th place. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar. He's 2.8 seconds behind Jarno Trulli. Can't do much about that, but he's got his mirrors full of Trulli's teammate Jenson Button. 0.7 of a second behind. Button's all over him. Button hasn't got the squirt in the straight line to get past the Jaguar. Remember, Eddie Irvine, he knows that car works well in a straight line here. It's not a totally downforce circuit, so they can use what they've got pretty effectively. He's got the Michelin tyre. And Eddie, very difficult to pass, but he's got the scent of maybe getting 1, possibly 2 points in an afternoon.
Another brilliant lap from Michael Schumacher, and this time Barrichello did not stay with him on that last lap, so the gap has gone out to 5.3 seconds. I don't know whether Barrichello made a little mistake there somewhere, because he definitely dropped away a touch from his team leader, but the 2 Ferraris still dominating the early stages of this Belgian Grand Prix. That is the gap back to Juan Pablo Montoya. He has Kimi Raikkonen 1.4 seconds behind, and Raikkonen has David Coulthard right behind him, just 0.8 of a second between them.
And I just wonder if David Coulthard could get free of Kimi Raikkonen, could he actually run faster than he's doing? Because he's got to a certain point where the performance of the cars is equal, but I believe Coulthard's got a little bit more potential at this point than Kimi has, but he hasn't got enough to get past. He's going to need some assistance, or maybe something from the pits, a call from the pits to Kimi, let him go.
So watching him as he heads down the hill, he glances in his mirrors, but he doesn't have to worry too much, because Ralf Schumacher is some 2.3 seconds behind in the second Williams. And there we can look at the other battle you talked about, John. It's Eddie Irvine versus Jenson Button.
I'll tell you what, it looked a lot closer on the timing screens than it does, in fact, on the road. But in fact it is about, well, we're looking at 7/10 of a second, and that's roughly what 7/10 of a second looks like at this sort of speed. So horsepower, Renault probably getting close to what Jaguar have, but certainly no advantage to Renault. Where their advantage lies is they've got probably a more efficient aerodynamic package. But nevertheless, Jensen not quick enough to be able to do anything with Irvine, who running and consolidating his 8th place on the grid, 8th place on the road.
So let's just keep an eye on these two British drivers at the moment, at slightly different points in their careers, of course. Eddie Irvine, team leader for Jaguar, has had a disappointing time ever since he joined the Jaguar team, really. Was, of course, Michael Schumacher's teammate at Ferrari for several years. Had his great shots at the title back in 1999. Has never won the Belgian Grand Prix. His main objective today is to score some points. He's still running in 8th. We only have one car out of this race so far after 9 laps have been completed, and that is Australian Mark Webber. The Minardi pulling off to the side of the road down at Rouge. All the rest of the 19 cars are still in, and that includes his teammate, of course, Anthony Davidson.
Well, Michael Schumacher by the lap almost setting new lap records. 6.3 seconds advantage over teammate Barrichello. Now 17.4 seconds ahead of Montoya in 3rd place.
So Coulthard not able, as you say, to really do much at the moment. They seem to be holding station at this point. Down inside the Williams pit, there's very little activity so far. 9 laps have been completed out of this 44-lap Grand Prix. Now, last year stops were made around this point, but last year the race was a different length because it was a restarted race. We won't expect to see the first pit stops in for another 6 or 7 laps yet, I would imagine, before we see the first pit stops being made. And so there's a little while here for Raikkonen and Coulthard to settle into their rhythm.
Just to give you an illustration of the pace of this race, fastest lap last year was a 49.2, 49.7, I beg your pardon. This year already on lap 10 it's a 48.1, so over 1.5 seconds quicker on lap 10 compared to what we saw last year over the 44 laps.
It's a very impressive pace that's being set up front at the moment by Michael Schumacher, no doubt about that. And 48.1, in fact, ironically, that's exactly the same speed that Anthony Davidson did in qualifying yesterday in the Minardi. So it just gives you some idea of how quickly Schumacher's going in the race, with lots of fuel on board, tyres that are now having done several laps.
And Felipe Massa now quickest man down the straight, doing 334 kilometers per hour in the Sauber. Massa still behind Villeneuve, 1.3 seconds, but Villeneuve right on the gearbox of Alan McNish for 12th place, 0.4 of a second.
Yes, he's gradually caught McNish over the last couple of laps. So we'll get another view of that, I'm sure, fairly soon, as McLaren keep an eye on the progress of their 2 cars. Another lap record from Michael there at 48.146. It's just lap after lap he's improving the mark, and it makes it look so easy. Every time we look at the leader, just driving smoothly, all under control. This is his teammate. Let's just watch with Rubens for a moment. Doesn't look too troubled, doesn't look frantic.
Yeah, but I don't think he's even happy with the spare car. He said he prepared this to his race car, but nonetheless, just is still not as committed as Michael Schumacher is in the Ferrari. Rubens, coming through Stablo, coming out of the exit of Fagnes, still looks slightly apprehensive on getting the throttle open fully.
No problems with taking Blanchimont left-hander, flat out, and Michael's about to set... Oh, we've got problems for Jensen Button. Jensen Button pulling off to the side of the track. He was involved in the battle with Eddie Irvine. He was running in 9th position, and he has pulled off.
Yes, that's on the exit of the Pujo corner coming into Fagnes, and he gets out of the way as quickly as possible.
On the TV. Sorry about that. Can you put the car in P0, please?
Well, I don't know if he's even still connected on the radio, is he?
A bit steamy from the left-hand side of the engine. It may be an engine problem, maybe some hydraulic, electrical. We'll maybe hear a little bit later if there's more radio traffic. But disappointment for Jensen, having a massive battle with Eddie Irvine for 8th place. He'll have an early bath and make his way back to the airport.
Brings Salo up into 9th position now, and the top 10 then is completed by Pedro de la Rosa. McNish still running one behind, as we see Jensen Button running across the road, has to sign the odd autograph or two, and then I'm sure he'll get a lift back to the pits.
Yes, on that last lap, Michael Schumacher, another new lap record, 1:47.877. If you ever wanted to see a Michael Schumacher masterclass of a Grand Prix, well, that's what we're watching right now. Some 8.8 seconds ahead of teammate Barrichello. Now, they may be on differing fuel loads. It's conceivable Barrichello could be on a one-stop. The gap, 8.8 seconds, difficult to judge. Just
noticing that Raikkonen's fuel flap has done what it did in the practice sessions earlier, John, this weekend. It's flapped open again, as Ron Dennis said to us, it's not a major issue, but if you look at the McLaren, you will see that fuel flap bouncing around.
Yes, and he explained that for practice and qualifying, they have a magnet system that keeps it closed, or in this case, half closed, half open. But come the race, then it's a different mechanism they use, and that's it's activated when you engage first gear when you come into the pit lane.
Now, this is the battle we talked about, because Villeneuve has gradually caught up to Alan McNish, and now just 0.3 of a second between them. And you can see that Villeneuve really trying to size Alan McNish up now for a potential overtaking manoeuvre. He worked hard at getting past Fisichella. Ooh, Villeneuve gets into a bit of a slide there. And Massa is still right with him. These two working not quite together, but certainly in tandem as they come and try and move past Alan McNish next.
And confirmation from Renault that that was actually an engine failure that saw Jenson Button retire just one lap ago. And that'll be disappointing for the Enstone-based Renault team. Is that rain on the... Is that spots of rain falling on the camera lens, or is it just being pulled through? Those lenses have been pulled through fairly rapidly.
Well, McNish's car looks as though it's sliding around a little bit. His teammate Salo, as I said, running in 9th place. But this is the major battle to keep an eye on for the moment. And Villeneuve trying to size up to see where the Toyota is quick and where it's not so fast.
Position 4, switch 1, position 4.
Yes, we've got quite an interesting battle going on here between Toyota and Honda, of course.
I don't know whether that's maybe liquids coming from the back of McNish's car that we're seeing on the camera lenses. There's a film across that lens to protect it, and if anything gets on it, then it goes through its loop. So I think that may well in fact be liquids from the rear of the Toyota rather than actual rain falling.
Over the curve, McNish trying to capitalise on where he's got a little bit more pace, and in fact the fact that he's got clean air over his car. Good downforce through this section of track particularly, whereas Villeneuve running in the dirty air behind McNish's car, making the car slide around considerably, and that makes it difficult to try and draw alongside. But still Felipe Massa is right with them. There's then a bit of a gap back to Fisichella. Fisichella's still going as Button's car is now moved out of the way.
Yes, and those yellow lights down at Fania, they've been there ever since Button stopped. And they're there for one very good reason, because that's a dangerous moment as that truck picks up the car to take it to safety. And Michael Schumacher on lap 13, yet another fastest lap there, 1:47.706, another new lap record.
Well, another stunning performance then from Michael Schumacher. He just making it look very easy at the moment as he accelerates away from the opposition. Even his teammate is a full 11.2 seconds behind, and that's a massive gap between the two Ferrari teammates. Barrichello himself, though, has a massive advantage over Juan Pablo Montoya. That's 15.5 seconds back to 3rd place as we ride once again with Jack Villeneuve trying to find a way past Scotsman Alan McNish.
And McNish resisting all the pressure from the former world champion, but he's got a horsepower advantage. And that Toyota, you can see just coming out of the corner, bits of bodywork being picked up. Now I think that's hard to tell where that was.
Yes, either La Source or the bus stop. I'm not quite sure quite where they were there. Now, can Villeneuve? Yes, he's got a good run this time. McNish just seemed to lose a little bit of pace through there.
Yes, he did. He wasn't, I don't know whether it's just the tyres giving up, but there you see the two. Comes up alongside, but has he got enough horsepower? He's certainly got the courage to wait until the last moment to put the brakes on, locks up the inside wheel. McNish tries to cut back, but Jacques, too experienced, too early. Watch Felipe Massa also. He's about to try and punch, then McNish has been caught maybe slightly unawares by the pace of Villeneuve up through the radio and down the straight.
So let's take another look at that. Let me just tell you, Sauber are preparing for a pit stop, but this was Villeneuve making the move on McNish.
And that's how you play a pass. You can move once to block, but you can't do it twice. Alan McNish was totally fair. He tried to make the cut back, but Villeneuve, too experienced, too bright to be caught by that one.
So I wonder whether it's going to be Felipe Massa or Nick Heidfeld. Massa runs 13th. Remember, he's right behind now Alan McNish himself, so he's got the task of trying to get past the Toyota. Perhaps the team will bring him in rather than let him waste time behind McNish at this stage.
I suspect that would be my choice. So here's what happened, we think. And Kimi Raikkonen, oh, whoa. That's the slow-mo David Coulthard follows. Again, you see the oscillation of the Michelin front tyre in particular as they ride those sawtooth curves, very aggressive. Let's look and see Jarno Trulli again, even more so on the front of the Renault than on the front of the two McLarens.
Trulli, the remaining Renault in this race, still runs in 7th position. Now, is Massa coming in here?
Yes, he is. It's Felipe Massa. So the team have decided to get him out of this battle get him in, do the service, go back out, hopefully find a bit of clear track where he can run at his own natural pace and let that battle between Villeneuve and looking at now it's De La Rosa, in fact, or the battle it was with McNish and Massa. So Villeneuve got clear air to Pedro De La Rosa, 5 seconds ahead of the Canadian. In 10th place, Pedro De La Rosa.
So into the pits also comes Takuma Sato, and the
fair bit of wear, Ben, on the front of those tyres.
Yeah.
Massa gets out as the work goes on. Sato's Jordan, but that was a fairly high amount of wear, I would have said, on the front of Sato's right
slow
front
here, John. Bit of a
problem
slow
on the right
stop.
rear, and that's disappointing. Looks like the wheel nut isn't seating. The gun couldn't get it to pick up on the threads. Now he's out, but it's a slow stop. 17.2 seconds for Sato, 9.4 for Felipe Massa. Now watch that white line.
Coming back.
The gap's beginning to open up again. Coulthard maybe just dropping back, either catching his breath. There's that flapping flap. And now Kimi Raikkonen zoning in once again. Juan Pablo Montoya as Toyota are preparing for a stop.
Yes, Raikkonen's timing this carefully to get back on terms with Montoya before the first round of pit stops. It might allow him to get ahead of the Williams, so that battle is still very much on as you watch De La Rosa, who is just a fraction behind Mika Salo. So Toyota versus Jaguar here, and Salo just holding on to 9th place from the Spaniard.
You'd have to think that the advantage is marginally towards the Toyota. It's got an incredible powerful engine, but here, this is what it's all about now, the battle for 3rd place. Raikkonen closing down as close as he's been up until the moment when Montoya got past. So let's watch to see if he can go flat out through Eau Rouge. Montoya may not be able to make it. Can he pick up the slipstream? It's not near enough, but certainly he'll draw close as they climb up the hill, get up towards Les Combes.
Yes, he'll get a little closer, but I'm not sure it'll be close enough to challenge. And these two have had their moments, haven't they, in the last couple of Grand Prix, both at Hockenheim and in Hungary. And it looks as though we might be set for another wheel-to-wheel battle. Irvine in the pits.
Yes, wheels Sargent. What's the problem? What's the problem?
There was
Delay.
another car. I think it was they delayed
Maybe
it because
to
the
tell them
Toyota.
that could be, but that's disappointing for Eddie. He lost a couple of seconds of what was a fairly reasonable stop. Ferrari now prepare, and one would assume this is Michael Schumacher, but you could never assume that. Michael once again en route to set another lap record, but will he be able to have a chance to complete the lap, or will he be brought in by Ferrari?
Good discipline from Jaguar and from Irvine there. He must have been realised it was ready to go, but
Michael
he had to
Schumacher
wait.
is in.
Michael Schumacher comes in then from the race lead here in Belgium. 15 laps he has completed. He has opened up a 13.9 second advantage as the massive lead over his own teammate. And now he wants a trouble-free pit stop. He doesn't need to take any risks here. So you see he comes in fairly calmly.
But again, fairly high wear in the front of those Bridgestone tyres. It's the Ferrari team, this well-oiled team, go to work, check the air intakes, make sure there's no debris there. Back out 8.6 seconds. So that's about as quick as anybody has been so far. They've had now 7 people into the pits for their services. We look to see what's going to happen at McLaren, what's going to happen at Williams. 73 litres, approximately 14 laps worth of fuel. So that would take him to lap 29 of the 44.
That's right. Well, here's that battle still going on behind as Michael has rejoined, and he's still ahead of this battle that is going on. So Michael back down to 2nd place. It is Rubens Barrichello who now leads this race, and this battle for 3rd continues between Montoya and Raikkonen.
It's a bit scary that Michael can come in, make the pit stop and get back out ahead of this battle for 3rd place. I think that, I mean, where are these guys going to go? Where are they going to find the time? What are they going to do over the winter time to run down, as we see Salo and De La Rosa? This is a battle we saw in Hungary. These two came in together. They've been on the racetrack in Hungary, and Ralf Schumacher has spun, and that is up at Les Combes. Ralph got it wrong in the entry to Les Combes, spun it around, gets back on track. Ralph had been running in 6th place. We want to know where Jarno Trulli was. Well, Trulli should have gone through. He's only 4.3 seconds behind. And so that's a loss of place for Ralf Schumacher.
So disappointment for Ralf Schumacher. We have to wait and see what happened, whether there was anybody else involved. But let me just tell you that Salo did get out ahead of De La Rosa just now.
And there's Trulli going through after that mistake. Now, was that a mistake under pressure? Was it a self-induced mistake? Here we see, now this may be 4. And Ferrari preparing for Barrichello as Williams prepare for one of their 2 cars. After that spin, they may change the strategy. Barrichello comes in. We wait to see whether it'll be Montoya or Ralf Schumacher for Williams.
So Barrichello, who was leading until a moment ago, as he heads into the pits, it will be Michael Schumacher back in front, and a healthy gap between the two of them, of course. Barrichello comes in for the stop, and just watch this crew go to work. It is poetry in motion. Great on-board camera, on-helmet camera, I should say. Clean out the side pods. A bit slow there.
Yes, the very slow on getting the dry break away. And of course he's going to drop back behind this battle for what will now be second place. Montoya, Raikkonen and Coulthard. He's going to rejoin in 5th place. And that, well, a couple of seconds that it took to withdraw the hose wouldn't have ultimately made a terrible amount of difference, but it might have got him out on the gearbox of David Coulthard rather than with clear air between the McLaren and the Ferrari.
Look at Raikkonen.
A little bit closer this time, but it's still not close enough to get past, but he's just, you can see that he's been drawn. Ralf Schumacher in now.
So Ralf Schumacher making his stop. Hopefully that'll be a clean, trouble-free stop. Yes, that works okay. And he rejoins as Raikkonen still hounds Montoya.
Yes, and I just get the feeling that Raikkonen is not satisfied with this 4th place. He started second in the grid, lost out that 2nd place to Barrichello initially. Then Montoya swept past as they went down the long straight up to Les Combes.
The two future stars, perhaps, of Formula One, Colombian Montoya and Finland's Kimi Raikkonen, set to do battle once again. McLaren, are they playing little tricks here on Williams?
Well,
looking as though they're coming out.
They look like they're coming out, that's for sure. Whether they're actually meaning it or not, we don't know. We'll know when the end of this lap comes. And here we see Williams once again preparing this time for Juan Pablo Montoya. And you got the Williams pit before the McLaren pit, so always a problem. Montoya coming in first to make sure that Kimi Raikkonen can get a clean run in to his pit box. He's going to find it, if it is him, slightly difficult. They may want to bring Coulthard in. He's 3rd on the road right now of these 3 cars.
So this is a very interesting battle coming up in the pit stops here between Williams and McLaren. At the moment, Williams have this slight advantage with Montoya, but will it be this way after the stops? In comes Montoya, in comes Raikkonen, so it's going to be a straightforward battle. How much fuel do you put into the car at this stage? If you short fuel, you might get Raikkonen ahead, but then he'd have to stop longer later.
But Raikkonen's going to be able to stop first, so in theory he'll be moving first. And I suspect if McLaren slightly short-change Raikkonen, they can get him ahead of Montoya. So watch for the length of time that fuel hose is in. The total pit time, of course, is important. Williams are fully aware of what McLaren are capable of doing, but they're putting a lot of fuel into the car. Out the hose, 9.6 is the time. Montoya's gone. McLaren put marginally more fuel in than Williams. That will enable Raikkonen to run maybe 3 laps, 4 laps further than Montoya. So when the final stop comes, somebody's off at Pujo.
It's Davidson. I think it's Anthony Davidson.
Yes, it is. He's not in any trouble. He's just found himself beached. It's almost like Brighton Beach down there. The pebbles are just as big as the gravel is here.
It goes a long way, doesn't it, that gravel trap? We're very, very wide. In comes Olivier Panis, and of course he had that dreadful start initially. Panis now trying to make up some of that lost ground. Let's see the BAR team go to work. Again, a bit of clearing out going on in the side pods where the radiators are. He gets away cleanly.
Yeah, good stop. So here's Anthony Davidson, comes into Pujo. Watch for the oversteer, and it comes. It's going to be massive because the back end's going to swirl. He didn't actually. He's got it all wrong there, Anthony. Well, give you the benefit of the doubt, but nevertheless, both now Minardi's out of this Grand Prix. Anthony, that's down to the driver. Mark Webber clearly had a mechanical problem very early in the race. So huge disappointment for Paul Stoddard and for Anthony Davidson.
That is disappointing. He was looking forward to a race finish today, and that's all over. Both Minardi's out. So here is Coulthard. Now, how quickly can Coulthard lap? This is crucial, because if he can put a couple of quick laps in here, he might end up ahead of Montoya.
Well, he's going to go into the pits this lap, Ben. The team are waiting for him, but he did have a personal best in that 2nd sector, so at least he had the chance to maybe squeeze another 1/10 or 2 of a second. Careful, slow the car down before that line. Now we see Barrichello sweeps through back into 2nd place. Coulthard makes his way down the pit lane, 80 kilometers per hour, 50 miles an hour, and no doubt he's counting every millisecond. Comes into a stop, slides in, car goes up, front wheel's off, front wheel's back on again. Watch for the fuel, the disconnection. There's 9.2 for Raikkonen, and what have we got? 8.7. Coulthard gets a slightly better stop. There's the battle going on behind us. He's not going to get back out ahead of his teammate, but it's going to be close. It is going to be close. Can he accelerate? He's got Montoya, but can he do it before he has? He's got ahead of Raikkonen.
Well, look at that. Raikkonen, the main loser there. Coulthard was about a second quicker stopped at the McLaren pit, and that means that he's now got ahead of Raikkonen, but of course that may change around again later for the final stop.
Yes, because Coulthard may have to put in a fraction more fuel than his teammate. But what's going to be interesting to watch now, that Coulthard is free of Raikkonen, what can he do to challenge Juan Pablo Montoya for 3rd place?
Raikkonen's fuel flap still flapping around, but it doesn't cause a problem to him. There you can see it. It's that little thing on the left-hand side of the cockpit that you can see moving around. That's the fuel cover, just a bit of bodywork. but it doesn't seem to disrupt the airflow over the car too much. Heading down the hill now through Rivage and the left-hander, quick left-hander here, and down towards Pouhon, where we've seen Davidson unfortunately head off into the gravel. This battle between McLaren and Williams, very finely balanced at the moment. It's Montoya with the advantage currently. So 19 laps completed. Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello dominating this race for Ferrari, but what a great battle we've got between Williams and McLaren behind them.
Kimi Räikkönen cannot be maybe as happy as he was in his first set of tyres. He lost ground to Montoya. They came in together. Montoya got out. It was a shorter stop for Montoya, but the gap as they came round at the end of the lap and Coulthard filed back in was sufficiently large. So on that outlap, Montoya was able to run at a race pace more quickly than from Kimi Räikkönen. So Räikkönen now 2.2 seconds showing Montoya. So the battle goes on as Michael Schumacher on lap 21 of 44 coming up to half distance, 16 seconds advantage over his own teammate, 36.6 seconds over Montoya in third.
It is another demonstration drive from Schumacher in particular, but from the entire Ferrari team, with Rubens Barrichello very comfortably in second place and miles ahead of Montoya, who's running in third. Then it's Coulthard and Räikkönen. Fisichella now is running in sixth place, but Fisichella has yet to make his stop, so they put a lot of fuel on board the Jordan at the start of the race, John, because they've managed to get down to lap 20 before he's made his pit stop. I'm not sure if they're ready yet, but Fisichella's still running.
But Fisichella, the only way to get him up into the points is to let him do that. He's currently in sixth, of course. When he comes in, he'll tumble down the field, but it'll only all wash out when the remaining cars that are doing a two-stop strategy come in. So it was a courageous move on the part of Jordan. It was probably the best move they could have made, bearing in mind from where Fisichella was starting on 14th position, row 7 of the grid. And you never know if Fisichella can just get on and drive his own race. He hasn't got any traffic, obviously clearly ahead of him. He's some 8 seconds behind Räikkönen.
Listen up.
The trouble is he's got truly 1.6 seconds behind him to keep him honest.
Yes, indeed, yes, 1.6 seconds only is the Renault behind him, and lap time last time around very similar, almost to the 100th of a second.
Box, Giancarlo, box this lap.
Right,
please
now
confirm, please confirm you're coming into the box.
Wait for him to confirm, and whether we'll hear that.
Through C2, through C2. We can't get radio confirmation with him at the minute, so we're not sure what's happening here.
Giancarlo, box, 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 come into the box now.
Well, he's been called in, and I just wonder
Giancarlo,
as we
box,
come up.
box.
Let's hope his radio's working, we'll soon find out.
As he comes up to half distance, this is the 22nd lap of 44, exactly half distance, so he comes very close to the end of the barrier. Can Jordan get enough fuel in just to do a one-stop? Have they got life enough in the tyres? We'll have a look when he comes to a standstill.
The fuel's going to take a while, so nice and steady on the wheels.
Well, that's a one-stopper. Gary Anderson saying it's going to take a lot of fuel.
So watch the fuel hose go in now. Don't expect to see a stop as rapid as we have for the others. They're refueling for the entire rest of the race distance, and that's going to take nearly 15 seconds, maybe even, oh no, not so much actually, 12.2 at the end, so pretty good stop.
Oh, battle, look at this. Nish gets it sideways. Massa looks for the opportunity. So we've got Ferrari stroke Petronas Power versus that of Toyota, but Massa's been very pumped up. Can he get close? This is where McNish lost out before, so Massa's going to try and slip into that slipstream. He's closing gradually, but he's too far, but he's catching. McNish was very generous previously. Will he be so generous with Massa? Not this time.
No, it breaks just as late as Massa by the looks of things. These two are battling over 13th position. They have both made their stops. In fact, everybody now, with Fisichella having come in, has made their first pit stop. And it looks like just Fisichella is going. Oh, and Massa makes a big mistake there.
Yeah, big lock up. Just grabbed that inside front wheel. Couldn't slow the car down. And now Felipe Massa with his own teammate 0.8 of a second behind. So any error from Massa will be punished by Nick Heidfeld.
Yeah, so it's a good little contest between the two Sauber teammates. Just watch him down the hill. Massive braking forces into the right and left at Fagnes. And Giancarlo Fisichella then, the only guy going for the one-stop strategy here. I wonder if it's going to work out in his favour by the end of the race. There you can see him back on track once again. And the Jordan boys know they've done their bit for the afternoon, if it goes according to plan. Of course, if he has a problem, he'll be back into the pits. Takuma Sato still running. He's down in 17th place. We haven't seen Peter Sauber smiling that much this weekend, but he looks a little happier at the moment, even though his two cars are running 14th and 15th currently. There is Fisichella just ahead of Olivier Panis, so that puts him in 15th place as he crosses the line. The confirmation of that, so he's right at the back, but of course everybody else ahead of him will be making one more pit stop.
So it's a long day's work for Giancarlo Fisichella. The one-stop strategy, it only pays dividends when you come to the last 3 or 4 laps. Certainly once the second round of pit stops is shaken out, then we will know whether the wisdom of doing this was worthwhile. It's going to be difficult, I think, to get him in the points, but it depends. In second pit stop, anything can go wrong. Once again, Massa locks up. Nick Heidfeld gathers up the car, picks up the speed, and now Felipe Massa's got to be looking backwards more than he's looking forwards towards Alan McNeish.
Yeah, that was a mistake from Massa, and Heidfeld seen it, sensing the opportunity. Oh, this is getting a bit risky, boys. Don't take each other off. Peter Sauber would not have a smile on his face then.
No, there's no point in Heidfeld doing what he's doing, because there's no way around the outside of the corner there. It's very slippery on the outside. You just got to be patient, wait for the opportunities where they come. There are certain parts of the circuit where Heidfeld may be slightly better than Felipe Massa, but round the outside in the reverse corner is not one of those places.
Got two drivers who are currently don't have a seat for next year. That's McNish and Massa, both striving to earn a seat for the 2003 season. Behind them we've got Nick Heidfeld, who has got his confirmed seat at Sauber for next year, and Heidfeld looking for any opportunity to nip past his less experienced Brazilian teammate. So 23 laps completed, we're over the half distance marker now, and it's still all about the two Ferraris. Michael Schumacher having a 19-second lead over Barrichello.
You know, you'd think if you're running 17th and last in the race, you wouldn't be trying very hard. Well, Takuma Sato is trying his hardest, because he's just recorded fastest sector times in the first 2 sectors on his, what is now his 24th lap.
Still watching this battle between the two Saubers and Alan McNish, and it is the battle for 12th, remember. Just looking back now from Felipe Massa's car, flashing past the grandstands, using the curb. That's such a dramatic shot as you watch the car behind coming up through Eau Rouge. That steep incline taken at 200 miles per hour. The car cornering at its maximum pace just about, and now up to Les Combes once again. And it's still the battle that continues, but up front it's all about Michael Schumacher.
And that car, it's serene the way it climbs up through the Eau Rouge over Radion, and now Takuma Sato, he's already going to be lapped. There's Sato, there is the race leader. So Takuma Sato, his last lap 1:51.3, Michael Schumacher's last lap 1:48.1. So 3 seconds per lap difference, and he's just going to eat him up. And basically, by the time they get to the bus stop, I think you're going to find the gap to Sato and to Michael Schumacher virtually. Well, Sato's going to have to start using his mirrors. He'll be getting blue flags and blue lights in the cockpit.
Astonishing performance this, John, so far from Michael Schumacher. 24 laps have been completed. He has nearly 45 seconds over Juan Pablo Montoya. That equates to nearly 2 seconds a lap, effectively. For the number of laps we've had and the distance between them, how can that be possible? Nearly 2 seconds a lap advantage for Michael over the Williams of Montoya. And when we look at the rules package in Formula One, which has had stability, it's very restrictive. It doesn't allow you a great deal of ingenuity, if you like, because all the designers have to work to the same set of rules. It just amazes me that Ferrari have been able to come up with a car this good this year.
Well, I think a part of the factor is that, well, Michael Schumacher's contribution to Ferrari is enormous, and it's his ability and his motivation that drives the team forward. Also, people like Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, and many more in Ferrari, they've sat down and said, look, what does it take to win a Grand Prix? They're intelligent people. There are intelligent people in Williams and in McLaren as well. But Ferrari have actually managed to conquer all the requirements, and they've got reliability and they've got good horsepower to boot. I think having Bridgestone tyres over this season has also been the right choice for Ferrari.
Just looking further down the timing screens, they've still got this battle going on between Fisichella and Panis. This is fairly crucial because, of course, Fisichella's got a lot of fuel on board at the moment. but he's desperate to stay ahead of Panis, who will have to stop again later on. But it would be a great advantage to Giancarlo to stay ahead of the Frenchman. Panis knows that only too well and will look for any opportunity to nip past. They might be battling over the penultimate slot here currently, but it's still just as intense.
Down 2 gears for the Canadian. Not quite out to the edge of the curbing. We've seen others get over it, and Anthony Davison said that's what happened. He caught that curbing, and he said every lap in this race until I went off was effectively a qualifying lap. He loved it. Sorry he made the mistake, sorry for all the hard work the guys put in without any return.
Well, a little bit of oversteer correction there from Olivier Panis. These two Honda-powered cars looking fairly evenly matched, and although Panis, I think, capable of going that much quicker, he should be able to go past Fisichella, you would think, with the consider the difference in fuel loading in those two cars, but he just can't quite find a way. And much the same story here. It's still McNish, Massa and Heidfeld enjoying their own little private tussle.
Well, I think the difficulty is, although the Jordan is heavier, they've got identical engines. The Jordan is the better of the two cars. I think there's no question about that. And every time Olivier Panis gets close to the back of the Jordan, usually it's coming up to a corner, then I suspect he would say after the race, well, I just lost front end bite and I couldn't do any more than I was doing.
Just a quick point to mention that we saw Ralf Schumacher spin earlier on, you'll remember, and he dropped a position to Jarno Trulli. Trulli now running in 6th place, but Ralf has just caught him up a little bit over the last few laps, so that the gap between them is 0.8 of a second. So Ralf isn't quite close enough to really pressurise Trulli, but there is a closing of the gap between the Renault and the Williams, chasing that last World Championship point, of course.
Yeah, and the lap difference is about 0.2 of a second in the last lap. I mean, what Ralf Schumacher has got is that with the car and with the horsepower he has from BMW, should be able to find a way past the Renault principally. Again, it's that run through Eau Rouge over the top and all the way up to Les Combes. That's going to be the place where his strengths are the greatest, or alternatively the run from Stabilo all the way up to the bus stop. But we've seen in the past Ralf sometimes not too keen to do that very courageous heart in the mouth dive down the inside. Certainly here not close enough, but run up to La Source. If he gets a good exit out of that, a good run down Eau Rouge, he should have sufficient advantage to be able to pick up the slipstream of Jarno Trulli and at least, you know, show us an attempt at getting past.
Well, we shall wait and see, but this is the battle we're looking at now for 6th place between the Italian Jarno Trulli. Great experience in Formula One, but he's only ever had one podium finish. That was a 2nd place in the European Grand Prix some years ago. Ralf, of course, has had Grand Prix wins, but now has to try and find a way of extracting a little bit of an advantage out of the Williams to find a way past the Renault. Same tyres, both on the Michelin tyres, so nothing to choose between them there. Might expect the BMW engine perhaps to provide a little more horsepower than the Renault engine at this stage.
Well, that would be my argument all the way through. Ralph's got, I'm sure he's got to the best part of 40 or 50 horsepower more than Jarno Trulli has. That doesn't always mean that you're going to be quicker. They've got, I'm sure, identical tyres in terms of the choice of tyres that both teams went for. So it really comes down to the basic fundamentals of the efficiency of the car, and maybe the aerodynamics on the Renault are more efficient than those on the Williams, and the balance of aerodynamics against engine power is basically keeping things status quo.
Now this could be interesting because Michael Schumacher, having lapped Takuma Sato, is now caught the battle between Olivier Panis and Giancarlo Fisichella. Now the blue flags will be coming out for Olivier Panis first of all, of course, so that will mean he'll have to back off. Really just depends. There you are, blue flag on our screen as well. That blue box in the bottom right hand corner indicates that the drivers are being given that. Remember, they have a light system in the car nowadays, so they not only see the flags around the track, but they have a light on in the car.
But watch, I assume Panis is going to let Michael Schumacher go on the exit. There he does. He pulls over, Michael goes through. Now what Panis wants to do is swoop in behind the Ferrari and get sucked along and try and find a way to get past Giancarlo Fisichella. It's one of those moves the driver hopes for. Rarely does it ever come off, because the reality is Michael's able to pull away sufficiently quickly from Olivier Panis that any hope of this happening, well, there you see the gap is almost double to what it was, and now Michael will find a way past Fisichella. Difficult part of the track to let him go through, Well, he does. Michael goes up the inside. Fisichella loses momentum. That will give Panis some hope and a run up into the bus stop. So basically the gap should come back to where it was before Michael Schumacher became involved.
Yes, he had to get onto the dirty area of track on the outside there. So, of course, if that messes up his tyres, he could be in trouble from Panis. But as you say, the gap between them now looks almost identical to as it was before Michael came up to lap them. So Renault now looking as though they're ready for Trulli to come into the pits. Of course, we lost Button, I'm afraid, earlier on in this race with engine failure. We have had 3 retirements from the race, the 2 Minardis and the Renault of Jenson Button.
Just we got a glimpse of the rear tyre in Ralf Schumacher's car. Looks to me like that right rear is pretty low on tread. In fact, there's no tread other than the outside shoulder. A bit of a no, they just got the air starter in case there's a problem for Sato. No problem, goodish, 10.3 seconds, probably not quite as good as they would have liked. David Coulthard runs in 3rd place, 1.8 seconds behind Montoya. Looks more when you see them come through Blanchimont, but of course it's measured as they come across start-finish line.
So Sato on a different strategy, of course, to Fisichella, and Sato has been running last, was lapped just recently by Michael Schumacher, but he's made his 2nd stop and they had to fill the car up for 16 laps still to go. Now Raikkonen, here he is, as you said, a little bit behind Coulthard, and Coulthard himself 2.1 seconds behind Juan Pablo Montoya. These 3 have been together throughout this race from the very first lap, and that's not going to be decided until we get to the end of this race, I think.
So Sauber waiting, and as Renault now, well, they've done their service, they just walk back out onto the pits. In fact, no, they're waiting for the service for Trulli to come in. There's Kimi Raikkonen, some 2.5 seconds behind. His teammate David Coulthard did lose out on that last lap, went from 1.7 to 2.1 seconds, just under half a second. So Montoya appeared to be able to run that little bit quicker. That was lap 28. And Raikkonen struggling, I think, very much like all the Michelin runners in the race. They have not got the pace, the drop-off in performance between that one single qualifying lap that we saw, particularly from Raikkonen, but also to a lesser degree from the 2 Williams. And it's, whoa, Massa. Well, there's a bit of a charge and a barge, and that was just over the top from Felipe Massa.
And you saw how it cost him as well, because they couldn't get the jack under the front of the car.
Still did a good job though, 9 seconds in spite of that, possibly lost a good second or more, while Felipe was just over the top. Michael gets past Heidfeld, so Heidfeld now goes a lap down.
And the interesting thing here will be, will Massa, as a result of that pit stop, be able to get past Alan McNish? Of course, we'll wait for McNish's 2nd stop before we can find that out, for Ferrari are preparing. So Ferrari now getting ready themselves for a 2nd stop coming up. Presumably Michael Schumacher, he was the first to stop the first time around. We are on lap number 30. This was Massa coming in a bit too fast, and his poor front jackman pushed well out of the way.
Yes, and also the 2 front wheel changes very close to getting clobbered as he sort of slithered to a stop. So McNish with pressure from Michael Schumacher putting a lap. Michael will want to get past. McNish does the right thing, backs off. What he doesn't on the line means Michael's got to go offline. He'll not be overly pleased about that. He might have a little word quiet. Backs off. What he doesn't on the line means Michael's got to go offline. He'll not be overly pleased about that. He might have a little word quietly with McNish and say, when you're being lapped, you go offline, not the race leader.
Well, we're expecting Michael Schumacher in. We see Jarno Trulli into the pits as well as the Renault team go to work. They are desperately trying to keep Trulli in position ahead of Ralf Schumacher, remember. That is the battle between these 2. It was less than a second before these pit stops were made. And now Michael, is he coming in?
Michael Schumacher is coming in, as is McNish. So Toyota and Ferrari coming into the pit lane. Race leader comes in, lap 29.
And so's Heidfeld as well. So there's a battle going on between Toyota and Sauber for position. And remember, Massa is already back on track, having made his pit stop. So Michael in, smooth, neat and tidy. No problems coming to a stop. We watch the mechanics at work. And again, the well-drilled crew practicing every eventuality, makes it look easy, heads on down pit lane.
Sticker tyres in the front, Barrichello comes up, he's going to regain the lead, but it'll be brief.
And there was McNish just coming out. There was going to be close between McNish. Yeah, he got out in front again of Heidfeld. Where's Massa? There's Massa. Now Massa's got a bit of a run on McNish. These 2 have been battling. Here comes Massa.
He's got it. There's no way McNish is going to challenge him just out of the pits like that. Not with a fired up, inspired. Well, Felipe Massa, courageous. I wouldn't want to go eyeball into that turn, particularly just coming out of the pits where your tyres are just fresh as they are. And you'd like to get one corner through you before you start challenging someone like Felipe Massa.
So Massa has taken advantage of that. Then Sauber can draw a bit of sigh of relief. It's not for points, I'm afraid. They're a long way down the order, but a bit of personal satisfaction, if nothing else. That brings Massa ahead of Alan McNish and the Toyota. Now Barrichello leads this race by just a fraction after Michael Schumacher has made his second stop. It's amazing to see how close they are on the road, though, considering Michael's now made 2 stops.
Yes, I think it's just awesome what we've seen from the world champion here this afternoon. I think he made a point in Hungary when he dropped back behind Barrichello and then drew up some 4.5 seconds, and then 2 laps drew up to the tail, set a new lap record in that race, but has just driven away from his teammates. Different tyres, of course. That looks like Irvine or De La Rosa. It's in fact Irvine, yes, Irvine and Salo in. So De La Rosa and Salo have got out of sync, which is probably just as well for both teams.
A pretty good stop.
A good stop, Irvine, who came in 8th. Let's see it make a Salo goes by, he came in 10th, so this battle for the final top 10 positions, not really a battle between Salo and Irvine, more a battle with Irvine and De La Rosa, who has been running strongly in 7th.
Still 17 cars in this race, only 3 retirements so far, and Davidson, Button and Webber, the unlucky trio not to have got to this stage. Rubens Barrichello into the pits then from 2nd position.
So the well-oiled machine goes back into action. It looks so simple. The wheels come off, the wheels go on. There's none of this sort of jamming that we've seen in the past, where heat expansion at different rates. At 9.1 seconds, well, 0.3 of a second slower than we saw for Michael Schumacher. Rubens comes down the pit lane, nobody coming up the start-finish line, so he rejoins the track, clear air, and when this lap is completed, no doubt he will find himself back in 2nd place.
3rd place man is Juan Pablo Montoya, and he's still a long way behind, despite the fact that Rubens Barrichello has made his 2nd stop. There you can see Montoya just coming through Eau Rouge, and indeed Williams are now preparing for the next stop, which we presume will be Ralf Schumacher.
It is. Ralf has come into the pits, so Ralf having a disappointing weekend, had that spin up at Les Combes, running in 6th place when he came into the pit lane. De La Rosa much further behind, not in contention in reality, so let's watch and see what Williams do.
Oh, problem.
It wasn't in gear, or he had a problem selecting gear, or was it a clutch? Something's wrong with the Williams, and Ralf Schumacher really struggling. I wonder, was that either the clutch or the gearbox? He seemed to struggle, just hesitated, almost came to a standstill, got it. Oh, watch the white line. That could have been an error, it could have been a drive-through penalty.
Battle for position here, yep, that is Villeneuve going through there, John, because he was behind Trulli and Ralf before the pit stop, so Villeneuve has gained a place on Ralf Schumacher.
There's only 1 stop, so he's got to come back in again. So Ralf doesn't really have to worry very much. What he needs to do is not get trapped behind Villeneuve as we wait for Villeneuve to make his 2nd stop.
Trulli definitely gaining an advantage there. We saw them close together before those stops, and Ralf might have been able to get out in front if they hadn't had this problem. Let's watch again.
There's just wouldn't go into gear, and I think he stripped the gear. I think he might have stripped 1st gear.
Yeah, it looks a bit like it, maybe. I wonder if the speed limiter worked okay when he had to change up there as well, John. So there's always a risk he might have gone over the speed limit.
Yeah, but I think the trouble was, I think if he did strip 1st gear, by the time he got it all sorted out, get into 2nd, I don't think he would have been. But you never know, he's quite a long way from the end of the pit lane. We will know certainly if he has done, because that information will be made available to us very quickly. So back out on track, he shouldn't really need that gear again, though. The La Source hairpin bend traditionally is a 1st gear corner, though you can take it in 2nd gear. It just loses you a momentary amount of time. Now
the fun side of this 2nd round of pit stops will be the battle between Montoya in the Williams and the 2 McLarens of Coulthard and Raikkonen. Remember that they're running 3rd, 4th and 5th at the moment, well inside the points. It could all change on that 2nd stop between the Williams and McLaren. Up through the bus stop. Villeneuve still not stopping for the 2nd time, so he remains ahead for the moment of Ralf Schumacher. Behind them, of course, we'll expect to see Eddie Irvine having made his stop. He's coming through the bus stop chicane at the moment.
De La Rosa's in, but Villeneuve going through the bus stop really monstered the curb as he went through it, aware that this is a race for position, that Ralf Schumacher, the longer he can hold him behind him, well, it's not going to help Villeneuve particularly, but at least it keeps Irvine, who is now running behind him, behind Ralf Schumacher, keeps him behind Villeneuve also.
Yeah, so for Jarno Trulli, this is a little bit of respite, perhaps, as we get into the latter stages of the race. Into the pits has just come Olivier Panis, by the way, so he has made his second stop. Remember, Fisichella is gradually moving up the order, having made just the one stop. People who've made second stops are now peeling off in front of him, so Fisichella now up to 12th currently, but I wonder how many more places he'll make as other people come in. Not so many more places. So Michael Schumacher continues around, and we're expecting Montoya to be in at the end of this lap.
He's in the pit lane already. So Juan Pablo Montoya is in, and we wait to see what the McLaren are going to do. Coulthard now up to third, Raikkonen up to fourth. There is Montoya.
So the Colombian yet to win a race in the 2002 season. Going back to Monza in a couple of weeks, where it all went well for him last year. He gets out of the pits fairly cleanly, 7.4 seconds.
That's about the quickest race I think we've seen all day. So that's pretty good for Juan Pablo. That'll help him in his battle with the two McLarens, because when they come in, it'll be, well, 59 litres, 12 laps, and we're on lap 34, so 12 of that makes, it'll be plenty of fuel. So we just keep an eye on what McLarens are doing now that they've got clear of Montoya. Coulthard has the chance to pick up, as does Raikkonen, so they're running in the high 49s. Michael Schumacher's last lap, 49.5, Coulthard's last lap, 49.8, Raikkonen's last lap, 49.9.
So it is, it's going to be this last pit stops for the two McLarens that shows us whether Montoya is going to maintain the edge over them in this Belgian Grand Prix. Jarno Trulli still looking to score the point for 6th place. And remember, he has now made both of his pit stops, and he has that little advantage over Ralf Schumacher, who struggled so much to get out of the pits, and there must be concerns about the health of that car, seeing how much he struggled to get out of the pits. If he has stripped a gear, all those little bits of metal must be floating around in the gearbox and not making life too easy.
McLaren preparing. So Coulthard in third, Raikkonen in fourth. The team come out. This will be a relatively short stop, probably not dissimilar in time to that of Juan Pablo Montoya. That was 7.4 seconds. And they don't want to be much longer than that, because they want to get back out, and that's the only way they're going to do so, to get ahead of Montoya for that third and final podium position.
So into the pits, and it is Kimi Raikkonen, the first of the two McLarens, to make his way in. And currently, remember, he runs behind teammate David Coulthard. He comes in from 4th because of Montoya having made his pit stop. But let's just see how quick the McLaren boys can get this service done.
And Coulthard has just given his fastest race lap on lap 34. So he's using that opportunity to run clear of Montoya to try and help the process.
Now Montoya's turning through La Source. Now the jack almost came with Raikkonen then. They didn't quite release the jack from the rear of the car. So that was a slight cause for concern. Montoya's out well ahead of Raikkonen. It's Coulthard that will really be the interesting one.
There's a small puff, I thought, of blue smoke as he came out of the pits. It may just have been difficult to tell. Yeah, I think there's a little bit you could just see up over Eau Rouge as well. That finest puff of blue smoke. Coulthard again on lap 35, fastest first sector time, so he is absolutely on the limit. He knows he's got to take opportunities when he's got them. This is an opportunity. When he comes into the pits, he wants to have picked up as much time as possible on Raikkonen and on Montoya.
Yes, Montoya to that first sector about 0.2 of a second slower. But there's a definite little bit of concern about some smoke from the back of the McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen.
Remember, we saw that in Monte Carlo when they had a problem with their oil tank and they had to use the telemetry to pump oil from one tank back into another. Now, whether that's the same problem, whether it's a separate problem, we just got the first hint of that haze as he came out of the pits. There was a similar one just up over the Radion.
Now let's just wait and see. Here comes David Coulthard hopping over the curb. This is his crucial stop. Oh, he really slams on the anchors as he reaches the marker of the speed limit. Now he just has to sit with the button pressed and keep it to the speed limit, 80 kilometers per hour, 50 miles an hour, all the way down to the McLaren pit. And they're into position now. Let's watch for Montoya. He's heading through the bus stop.
So Montoya in third place. Raikkonen somewhere behind him. Coulthard coming again.
Fantastic stop there.
6.2 seconds. There is Coulthard. There is Montoya. It is not going to happen. He will rejoin in fourth place behind the Colombian, but he will certainly be close enough to him to at least get something out of that superb stop by McLaren.
So they must have started, David, with a fair old bit of fuel at the start of this race, because two fairly rapid stops for him And the car must have been reasonably heavy in the early stages, but it isn't quite enough for them to get him out, back ahead. And what's this, bit of clearing up still going on in the McLaren pit, or is there some other concern?
Well,
here?
Raikkonen's coming in. Raikkonen has got a problem. We picked that up on the exit. He's coming in, and we're looking at the times. Kimi Raikkonen, I think, is out of this race. He's going to come in and drive straight into the garage, because that blue haze where we saw coming out of the left-hand side. Well, there's the blue haze. It is now an absolute... And that's how he's going to stop. He can't even make it back to the pits. So that's up at the top of the circuit at Les Combes, and Kimi Raikkonen's weekend is over with a bang.
That is such a shame. He had a run of bad reliability earlier on this season, lost an engine in Malaysia very dramatically, remember, also had an engine go at the A1 ring, but what a shame. Germany too, ultimately. Sorry, the British Grand Prix had an engine failure as well, but it's Raikkonen out after his great qualifying performance yesterday. So he clambers out, and it's just the end of a disappointing day. What it does do, of course, John, brings somebody else into the points.
Ralf Schumacher now comes into the points, because he was running in 7th place, so he'll now be 6th, and Eddie Irvine will go up with him as well into 7th, and well, there's a sad end. We just noticed that it's strange, and there's Trulli as well.
Oh no!
So Renault out, so now Irvine is in the points, because Trulli's retired. They've seen Kimi Raikkonen retire, both on lap 37. So all of a sudden, two serious contenders in the top 6 are out of this race.
And guess what? Eddie Irvine will be in the points. Jaguar will be in 6th position as a result of Trulli pulling off. I feel bad for Renault, but it is pretty exciting for Eddie Irvine.
But it's also, you've got Mika Salo only 2.1 seconds behind Irvine. So by the time Irvine comes through, finds that he's gone from 8th to 6th, he's obviously going to be a happy camper, but he has to keep the pressure on, because Salo, 2.1 seconds. The difference in lap time is that Irvine is fractionally faster, so it shouldn't in reality be a threat or a challenge to Jaguar, but nonetheless it's sufficient on lap 37 to keep Irvine honest.
So Michael Schumacher, well, he's ahead of all this what's going on behind. And we're taking another look here at the battle that's going on between Villeneuve and Fisichella. This is the battle over 11th. So Fisichella with that, 9th place, with the other people having stopped on the last lap. It's actually 9th. Fisichella's made up a fair bit of ground, courtesy of his single stop strategy, but he now finds himself with a 7.9 gap between himself and De La Rosa. So there's not much prospect of him actually earning more places.
No, I think that all he can do is defend his position. He's got Villeneuve pressing Fisichella for that 9th spot. Of course, money is paid because of the way that finances are arranged, so it's important, because when it all comes out at the end of the year, your positions all count, it's all tabulated, and it all goes towards the income of a team. So this is a battle, and while it's a battle of pride as much as anything else regarding the two Honda teams, and Fisichella struggling really as much as Villeneuve as they come through Rivage.
Coulthard's still keeping close to Montoya, isn't he? This is the battle for 3rd, remember, and Coulthard, despite that great pit stop from McLaren Mercedes, didn't get out ahead of the Colombian, but now he's certainly keeping pace with him.
Well, he's certainly pushing hard, because he was very quick in that first sector. He can get so close, and then he maybe has to be careful in the middle sector, where Montoya's car isn't as good as the McLaren, but he can't get close enough to pass. Also, Ralf Schumacher suddenly woken up. He's pressing a little bit harder too, but running in the 1:51s, where these two are running in the 49s. They're in fact running quicker than race leader, quicker than 2nd place.
Yes, Michael Schumacher has really backed off the pace. Certainly on the last lap, he may have been dealing with traffic, but it was a 1:52. These guys in the 1:49 second bracket. But just to remind you, Michael Schumacher has fastest lap in this race at a 1:47, a full nearly 3 seconds faster than the pace they're setting.
Ben Mika Salo, well, it was 1.8 seconds, just catches and they came across the line, so it's back to 2 seconds. So Salo clearly pushing also to try and take that final point championship situation, number 6. Irvine holds it, Salo wants it.
Two very experienced campaigners, John, Eddie Irvine and Mika Salo. The two of them raced against one another in Japan for several years and have both very extensive Grand Prix careers. Salo, we know, will not be likely to be racing next year. He sort of semi-announced his retirement earlier this week, only to backtrack slightly.
Oh, Pedro De La Rosa got a problem. Is that a suspension problem?
Right rear
or tyre or suspension, and that was a hairy, scary moment as he came up to Les Combes. And there you were at, Ben, absolutely the rear suspension. And, well, that caught Pedro.
Failure, rear suspension failure. I retire.
Well done. I mean, that was a big, scary moment, and Felipe Massa also stops.
Oh, that's a great shame. He'd got himself into 11th place ahead of McNish.
Was there any contact, or was there anything? Because these two, no, they weren't together on the track. They were well apart. Now, the top of the circuit, we've got 3 cars up there.
Okay, Pedro.
Well, we saw very few cars going out in the early stages, but boy, we're seeing a few retirements now. So to join the list of Mark Webber, Jenson Button, Anthony Davidson, we now have Jarno Trulli, Kimi Räikkönen, Pedro de la Rosa and Felipe Massa.
David Coulthard pushing, fastest race lap for Coulthard. He's now 0.8 of a second. Let's have a look and see. There it is. Right, watch for that right rear. It just
suddenly hits the road, doesn't it, the car?
And there you see, that's a moment where a driver dreads. He's got very little braking effect. The left front's up in the air. He's got little steering motion either, but luckily lots of space. Here's the onboard view from Pedro. All of a sudden, whoa! But look, really little panic from Pedro. Just rides the car over the grass, gets it into a slide. That helps slow it down. And, well, very composed on the thing. Suspension, rear suspension brakes. I retire.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty succinct.
Well, it's a part of the track where they're doing around 200, just over 200 miles an hour up there, so I think he was probably just on the brakes as the suspension collapsed, but it's a very fast section to go off. Now through Eau Rouge, and we've just got the 5 laps to go now for Michael Schumacher, and remember, he is heading for another spectacular blow-up.
Absolutely horrendous. Again, I think that's just at the top of radio coming up towards Lake Coombe, and that has gone off. I tell you, that's as big as we've seen from a Honda engine all year. I think that almost matches Panis's in the Austrian Grand Prix.
Well, it's the 4th major engine failure for Honda this weekend.
What about Villeneuve? What happened to him? He was directly behind it. He must have got a real visor helmet full of shrapnel, oil, water and whatever else came out from the back of the Jordan.
Brings Villeneuve up into 8th place in the BAR Honda. Let's take another look here.
Same place as Panis. There, I mean, a real rooster tail. Look, bits of metal falling. There's huge lumps of metal coming out. So that's going to be a problem of traffic coming up behind. There will be red hot metal as that just flames out. It's almost like the space shuttle taking off.
That's amazing, isn't it? That's a spectacular blow up. And as you say, exactly the same place Olivier Panis pulled over.
The problem I would worry about is there's so much shrapnel come out, hot metal, probably pistons, part of the block, maybe conrods. And that could be on the track, so drivers have to be careful. Eddie Jordan sits there and wonders what has he got to do. It's been a hard year for Eddie. He's got to find a way to consolidate his position in the championship. He's in the battle for that 5th place today. No points.
No, that's right. Well, Räikkönen there is. He is getting a lift back to the pits. He's driven superbly all weekend, and a great shame that he's not going to have any points to celebrate that. Meanwhile, Montoya still looking to grab the final podium position here today. Still Coulthard very close behind him, let me tell you. Last time they came through, Coulthard in 4th was only 0.6 of a second behind Montoya.
Last lap for Michael Schumacher, 1:54, and both Ferrari drivers getting instructions from the pit to just slow down. No need. They've got a 42-second advantage over Montoya in 3rd place. Barrichello's got a 25.8-second advantage. So no real threat from Montoya in these closing laps, and just bring the 2 cars home safely. There's no race between the 2 drivers either, because Michael Schumacher has taken this Grand Prix by the scruff of the neck and just said it's mine, and it's all mine.
It is, and heading for win number 10, here comes McNish, and he's still got Sauber behind him. It's Nick Heidfeld, of course, and Panis has blown up now as well.
Well, 3 of these engine blow-ups have been on the straight. Panis does it at the very end of the straight. So Honda really on the limit with this engine. They're really producing horsepower, but at the sacrifice of reliability. We need a bit of fire extinguishment on that one, because if it keeps burning, well, it'll catch the bodywork. But they're there quickly treating it. They do enjoy dumping powder onto these things, so just stay there, guys. Don't pump any more than is necessary.
Well, what a spectacular end to the Grand Prix we're seeing for a number of the Honda runners, not just them. We've seen spectacular action from the Jaguar, that failed rear suspension. I hope that Eddie Irvine's car is going to hold out. He's holding on to 6th place.
Ben, I think if I'm right, that's 4 significant, and by that I mean massive blow-ups that Honda have suffered over the 3 days of here in Belgium. And Panis has had 2, Fisichella 1 and Sato 1.
Yes, well, in fact, he lost 2 engines in the first 2 days. I think that's his 3rd one, isn't it? That's his 3rd engine failure this weekend. So he really has had the worst of the luck so far this weekend.
And of course, pressure on Honda. They've got a major test coming up in Monza, which is a pure engine circuit. They've got to replace these 5 engines. So the whole cycle of reservicing the engines, you know, this is what makes Formula One tough. When it gets bad for you, it gets worse.
Scary place. It's the same place, of course, that De La Rosa's suspension collapsed. Again, it's that up to over 200 miles an hour up there. This is the battle between Montoya and Coulthard. I mentioned that it was pretty close. There you can see just how close it is. Coulthard very much keeping the pressure on Montoya. There's been a few words exchanged in the press between these two over the last couple of weeks. Coulthard still smarting a little bit from the incident at the Nürburgring when Montoya took him out.
Yes.
And they've both been making comments about one another.
Yeah, I mean, I think that David, I mean, that's such a long time ago now. He should have put it behind him. Nevertheless, he appears to use that as an excuse for the comments that he made in one of the weekly magazines. And, you know, it's easy to make comments about another driver. Sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's just a waste of time.
Well, I'm sure there's still a fair amount of respect between these two. It's not as if they're quite at the stage where it's no holds barred, but they've both been making their comments. Montoya made the comment that perhaps Coulthard should watch out for his teammate Raikkonen and concentrate on beating him. Coulthard actually responded, fair point, that's what I intend to do.
I think he said Montoya should have... Montoya said it, yes. But, I mean, it was a fair point that Raikkonen that Montoya made, because, you know, it's all right firing off bricks at alternative and competitors, but don't forget that if you're vulnerable in your own team, and David is vulnerable in McLaren, he was out-qualified. In qualifying, he's done a very strong job. He outraced Raikkonen here today, but Raikkonen retired with an engine failure, but David really had the better race car, the better race setup. That choice of the slightly harder Michelin tyres suits the driving style of David Coulthard, and of course Coulthard's forte is racing rather than being that one single blinding fast lap.
And he's racing hard here throughout the Grand Prix, but he's running out of time. Michael Schumacher's just gone over the line again to make it just 2 laps to go here. 2 longish laps. It's the longest Grand Prix track. Massa has walked back. It's a pretty severe looking Felipe Massa, isn't it? Usually he's got a smiley face, but no smiley face from Felipe Massa at the end of a hard fought but ultimately overly short Grand Prix.
So into the bus stop. Here come, this is the 43rd lap. And not really much to pick and choose between them.
Amazing, even at this late stage in the Grand Prix, still using the curbs fairly hard through there. It looks like stalemate between McNish and Heidfeld as Barrichello comes up to lap them.
Yes, and of course, Michael Schumacher's dropped back even further. I mean, he's been dropping, what, 3 and 4 seconds a lap now on his teammate. So allowing Rubens Barrichello to close up, not to maybe highlight the domination that we've seen from the world champion here this afternoon, and to make it look a little bit more respectable. So the gap down to just under 10 seconds at 9.365 to be precise.
Well, Ferrari heading for a 1-2 finish here this weekend. Yet another one to add to their tally of 1-2 finishes so far this season. Coulthard still keeping in behind Montoya. Let's just ride on board the McLaren for a moment.
So we're down into Pujo, and nothing to pick and choose between the McLaren or the Williams. The gap showing 0.5 as they came across the line, and that's probably about as close as it's going to get between these two unless an overtake does come. Villeneuve into the bus stop chicane.
He's putting in some quick laps, actually. Well, 49.941 on that last lap.
Oh, and look at that. I mean, just the car gets up in the air, bounces across the curb. Very good last lap. That's the quickest lap of the race for Jacques Villeneuve as he's hunting down Mika Salo. He's only, well, he's 4.3 seconds behind Salo, and of course a million miles ahead of Alan McNish, who currently is in 9th.
So it's the final lap for Michael Schumacher, and he is going to establish that new record with Nigel Mansell here this weekend. Michael Schumacher will take the record for number of victories in one season. He will take it to 10, and how many more will he get? 3 more Grand Prix after this one. He could still extend that record further with the performance of this car and with Michael Schumacher at the wheel.
And there you see second place Barrichello. Oh, Nick Heidfeld, what are you doing? They're all locked up. He almost overran into the back of Barrichello. Now that would have been a thing on the last lap. So an in-front runner in second place, Rubens Barrichello from the team that provides you with your engines. That is not a good career move, Nick.
No, Sauber nearly lost their engine contract for 2003 there, but thankfully they both survived. And Michael Schumacher is just stroking it home. He's making it all look so easy, as he has done really all weekend, and this will be the 6th Grand Prix of the year that we have seen a Ferrari 1-2 finish, and that's a pretty astonishing statistic as well. They just keep adding to the numbers game for Michael Schumacher. David Coulthard still looking to fight away past Montoya, but I really don't think it's going to happen now on this final lap. Schumacher looking for win number 63, and it's all going Ferrari's way.
It's David Coulthard pushing hard again, fastest first sector time on the last lap of the race as we go back to the race leaders. Michael Schumacher through Blanchimont for the last time. And the gap was 6.1 seconds when they came across the line. Now he slows down for the bus-stop chicane, and Barrichello, well, he's not very far behind.
Michael Schumacher comes through to set the new record, 10 wins in one season. Ferrari take their 6th 1-2 finish of the year, and delight once again for the Tifosi as they show everyone how to do it.
Perfect race. Well done.
Ross Brawn.
Thank you, boys. Fantastic car. I mean, unbelievable. Ooh. Really a great year what we have altogether. Thank you for all of this.
Sounds like he's done nothing at all, doesn't it? He's so relaxed, so easy. That car was superb today, and the Ferraris were in a different league. As I said at one stage, he was effectively gaining 2 seconds a lap on Montoya for lap after lap. Massive advantage. In the end, it wasn't much because they backed off to close up together. But
and Michael backed off the best part of 15-18 seconds over the last 5 or 6 laps. I mean, he just drove away from his teammate. Ralf Schumacher comes through. He takes 5th place, waiting for Irvine. Some 18.9 seconds behind, and a great drive for Irvine and for Jaguar, thoroughly deserved after a really tough season.
Quick shake of the hand from Montoya. Montoya had to fight for his 3rd place, and Williams today, John, just got the edge over McLaren, but it was a very evenly matched contest. But here comes Irvine to take points for only the 2nd time this year for the Jaguar team. 1 point for 6th place, and that's going to be a relief to Niki Lauda.
Yes, it is, and I just wonder whether that might be enough to keep Eddie Irvine as an incumbent driver in the team. Everybody's talking about Mark Webber on the verge of joining Jaguar, but remember, Irvine is a very, very good race driver. He's still fast, and do you bring in an inexperienced driver, relatively speaking, such as Mark, to join Pedro de la Rosa, or do you keep for one more year what you've got? And I think that equation is becoming a bit of a difficult one to work out.
5th place for Ralf Schumacher, so he picked up the 2 points for that position. But in the battle, certainly Montoya just gaining the edge over Coulthard. It was pretty hard between the two of them all the way. Little discussion going on in there in the minibus.
Yeah, they all look very cool, calm, and not particularly physically worked out. So they'll be bussed down to the press room, to the unilaterals, and we'll get an interview with Michael Schumacher. He can tell us, I'm sure, that this was the best Ferrari I've ever had. The tyres were, I've never had better Bridgestones.
So there we are, the results from Belgium. Schumacher, Barrichello make it a Ferrari 1-2 again. Montoya beats Coulthard in a battle that proceeded throughout the race. Ralf Schumacher made one mistake, had a poor pit stop as well, ended up 5th, and Eddie Irvine getting the final point in 6th. Salo and Villeneuve had a hard afternoon, but had nothing really to take home from it, except 7th and 8th places. No points were awarded there. McNish in 9th, another Grand Prix finish for him at least, ahead of Heidfeld. And the other finishers were Takuma Sato and Olivier Panis. They were classified, Panis, although of course he didn't actually finish the race because he suffered that very spectacular engine failure. But enough laps completed to still be classified.
I think we've seen the domination of dominations today, and I don't know what Rubens Barrichello must think. He had the choice of the race car or the spare car. He went for the spare car. He also opted for the harder of the 2 Bridgestone tyres. No doubt that hurt him in overall pace, but of course it's about a balance and the ability to open the throttle, and he felt that was better for him. But the penalty was he was never really in the show today with Michael. In the initial laps he ran behind him, but once Michael's got his head down, he set that sequence of lap record after lap record and just pulled away from the Brazilian. And I think that well, Ruby's face, he seems happy enough. He knows.
That's interesting. He's saying his water bottle wasn't working.
It was nice after 20 laps just to... I didn't...
Well, they're all happy campers. You know, they're like schoolboys when they get together after a rugby match. It's all get a few beers in, lads, and that's a bit of a sing-song. You know, they've got to go through the press conference and all the other responsibilities before they can do that.
He's like his mum now. He's getting him to do his sort himself out, tidy himself up. It's that new beard, you know.
Well, it's good to see the competition on the field is intense. There have been words and almost words and war between Montoya and Michael Schumacher. Rubens maybe not quite in that league, but now just waiting to go into the unilateral room to hear what they have to say to describe their particular day's race. And we'll very quickly be able to go in and join them and find out. I'm interested in Montoya really, because having had a difficult weekend so far, he managed to come through to take that final podium position and elevate himself above Ralf Schumacher to be clear third in the championship.
Time for them to come out. There is Ross. First time they've found each other since the end of the Grand Prix. And a hug for both drivers, who now make their way out onto the podium. Opposite the huge grandstand on the run down towards Eau Rouge. And it's a 6th win in Belgium for Michael Schumacher. He takes over the outright record for wins in Belgium. He was tied with Senna, and now, once again, he's a step ahead. Wins in one season. Michael Schumacher has broken the record that he held and Nigel Mansell held jointly, but now it's all changed once again as he wins in Belgium. The venue of his first ever Grand Prix victory back in 1992, and here he is setting yet more records. Ross Brawn celebrating a 1-2 finish, top constructor, and further extending that mighty constructors lead. They're already the constructors champions, remember, but they're making the rest of them look a little bit silly at the moment, despite all those hours of hard work and millions poured in by the likes of McLaren and Williams. They just had no answer for Ferrari.
And can you imagine what it's going to be like in 2 weeks' time when we go to Monza for the Italian Grand Prix? With this type of domination, that place is going to be buzzing. And the prospect of what we've seen here today being repeated in Monza, unless there's some real drop-off in tyres, I have to say we can only expect very much the same.
Well, Ferrari fans are delighted. Time for the champagne shower. Ross is staying there. He's not run around the corner yet. There's a bit of a battle going on with Ross and Rubens.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to win that battle, because Ross is a big old fella, and Rubens, as tough as he is, you know, Ross has got the advantage of bulk, I think, in that one.
very sticky. Oh, it's good to see Rubens actually having a little drink of it as well.
Yeah, well, Ross does appreciate a nice bottle of wine. The mum champagne being sprayed, but of course when it gets in your eyes, it stings, it's sticky. And Michael doing that wonderful impersonation of a French wine waiter, where he anyway, puts it up to his mouth and just pours it. Those are handed down to the team take them back to Maranello and they display them proudly.
Time for the photographs. To capture the moment, and a big smile on Michael Schumacher's face, and they will be heading down to the press conference room in just a few moments' time. Michael can be asked, how does he feel? Well, he says he doesn't always find it very easy to talk about how he feels at moments like this. And of course, beating that record, perhaps not quite as significant as some of the other records he has achieved, but it is significant nonetheless, a mark of Ferrari's performance advantage this year.
Yes, I mean, Nigel Mansell did it in a time when he really did have a massive technical advantage with the active Williams Renault that he raced in, but Nigel used it incredibly efficiently to win those 9 races as he won his World Championship in the Hungarian Grand Prix. Michael was able to do it just that little bit earlier, and now has gone on to exceed those 9 Grand Prix wins in the season. But one has to say the advantage that Michael Schumacher and Ferrari have enjoyed this year is equal really to that of Nigel and Williams back some 10 years ago.
Yes, I would agree with that, John, and maybe not in quite such an obvious way in terms of the Williams package that year, but with the restriction on the rules these days, in some ways it's even more remarkable that they've been able to come up with a car that has this sort of performance advantage over the likes of McLaren and Williams.
And it's not just performance, it's fundamentally reliability. This is the 50th occasion, another anniversary when Ferrari have been on the podium, at least one driver. Here they got 2 drivers. So to celebrate your 50th anniversary with both drivers on the podium, first and second, I mean, where do you go? You've got all the superlatives, there's none left.
Well, I'm sure it'll only fire up the likes of Ron Dennis and Frank Williams to come back at them next year. It might be the fact that they've had to write off the 2002 season. They won't give up in the remaining 3 Grand Prix, and I'm sure that given a little edge, a little change in weather conditions, they'll still be hunting for victories. But you have to say, 2002 is about Ferrari, it's about Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. Next year could be a very different story. Lots of people enjoying the mood here in Belgium. Big celebrations for the Ferrari fans. And the drivers have already made their way to the press conference room, so let's hear from them right now.
Congratulations, gentlemen. A very fine Belgian Grand Prix. Victory to Michael Schumacher, 2nd place to Rubens Barrichello, and 3rd place to Juan Pablo Montoya. Michael, a record 10th win a year. No one's ever done that before. Your 6th win here, and not only that, this is the 50th consecutive race with Ferrari driver on the podium. It looked like the perfect race from the outside.
It very much did. I mean, I think we haven't really expected anything like that. We were optimistic. We had a very good weekend altogether. But you never know what is going to happen in the race with temperature and so on, with different tyres. Then we managed a very good start where Rubens and myself, we immediately went up front, and that was basically the decision for the race, where we could drive our own pace and drive it home.
Now, with the work done, 2 successful stints, 2 pit stops, you came back out and you had a lead of over 25 seconds, and at the end it was down to 2 seconds. Was that you just taking it as easy as you could, or were there any problems?
There was no problems. I mean, we saw a lot of engines, they blew up, and it was just precaution that there's no reason to stress anything harder than necessary. Obviously, there's 2 seconds between Rubens and myself, but there was another 10 seconds, I think, roughly to Juan Pablo, and in this case, we were able to take it a little bit more easy.
Michael, thank you. Congratulations. Rubens, as Michael said, you both made good starts and you managed to work your way past Kimi Räikkönen by the first corner, so that must have given you a great deal of pleasure.
Oh yeah, because it was on the back of my mind how quick Kimi could go, and obviously by overtaking him by the start, it was a lot easier for us to just set our times. Unfortunately, I mean, I had a lot of trouble this morning with the setup, so I was a little bit in the dark for the race, and I had a little bit too many blisters on the tire. But altogether, I think from where I started on Friday with the small problems on setup and everything, I think it has been a good weekend.
Now, it looked as though you had a rather nasty surprise with a few laps to go when you came onto the start-finish straight and found a wall of smoke from Felipe Massa's engine.
Yeah, not just that, but it was panics on the top of the hill as well. I thought they were right in front of me both times, and I was looking not just to find a way, but to see if there was oil, because if you get the oil, you're just a passenger. But luckily, I managed to go through.
Rubens, thank you. Juan Pablo, like Rubens, you also managed to put Kimi Raikkonen behind you in the early laps, but you never really managed to drop him off your tail or David Coulthard, so it was a hard race.
I think it was a pretty hard race. I think especially with Kim at the beginning. We pitted the first lap at the same time, and when we pitted, I think it put a lot more fuel in to go longer, but after that I never saw him again. Then was the fight with David to the end. I think it was very important the hour laps were quick enough to manage to stay ahead.
Now, with Rubens finishing second and you third today, he's stretched his advantage to 7 points over you in the battle for second place. Any chance you can turn that round?
But you never know. If Rubens has one DNF, things could turn around really quickly. So, we'll see. Next few races, hopefully quite strong for us.
Juan Pablo, thank you. Michael, finally back to you. Next race, Monza, home of a certain team for which you drive. Very good place to maybe go for win number 11 and stretch that record of yours.
I don't think we should ask for too much, honestly. I mean, we have achieved so much this year that it would be probably a little bit, arrogant to ask for more. We just take what comes and we do our best. And obviously, we would like to do our best and take another victory as Ferrari in Monza, because that's our home Grand Prix. But wait and see. I mean, it's a long circuit. We have seen Williams going very well there in the past years, and it's going to be a difficult race, but a race where we should as well be competitive.
Michael, thank you. Now, gentlemen, if you'd like to speak in your own languages, starting with Michael.
So, the concluding remarks from a well-won Belgian Grand Prix from Michael Schumacher, an easily won victory for him, and as he said, he can never tell how it's going to be, but today they really were in a class of their own.
Yes, I mean, very modest, I think, in his comments, and he knew that he had a pretty good race car, but also he drove a fantastic race. He just got the lead. He had Rubens behind him for 5-6 laps, but inevitably the pace that Michael was then able to run at for those sequence of laps where he just knocked every lap virtually a new lap record, ending up on 1:46.933. I mean, it's just awesome what the guy is capable of doing, and consider he started Formula 1 in '91, and here we are in 2002, and he drives with that commitment, that spirit, that desire to win, where other drivers, when they get to that stage in their career, they're beginning to get tired, they're dissipating their efforts into other areas, maybe other business interests, or they're just had enough. But he's just so young, so fresh, and he loves it, and I think it's the success breeds success. It simply is a matter of that, and with people around him such as Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, the entire Ferrari team, Jean Todt, who in a way is the puppet master who orchestrates it. It is just one fantastic team. Now, the good news is most things in Formula 1 are cyclic. They go round, and we're seeing a real fantastic purple patch for Ferrari. We've seen that in the past from McLaren. We've seen it previously from Williams. So at some point, that dial's going to move round, and it's going to be one of those other two teams. And even, don't discount Renault, because over the next couple of years, Renault are going to be a major force in Formula 1. They have yet to put together the package to achieve it, but they're on course. And part of that may well be young Spanish driver Fernando Alonso.